The site foreman called me at 7 in the morning. His voice was low and careful. "Mr. Vance, your son-in-law just ordered me to ban you from the Riverside site. He says you're a liability. He told the whole crew you're a danger to yourself." I didn't argue with him, but I thought you should hear it from me first. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone. My own daughter's husband had just tried to throw me off a job, and he had no idea whose name was on the deed. Welcome back to The Forgotten Parent. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to do right by the ones who raised them. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to want to stay till the end. My name is Marcus Vance. I am 68 years old. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I drive a 15-year-old work truck. The tailgate is held shut with a bungee cord. I wear the same brown Carhartt jacket I bought in 1994. My boots are older than most of my crew. I still lace them the way my father taught me. People look at me and see a tired old laborer. That is exactly what I want them to see. I stopped correcting them a long time ago. There is power in being underestimated. Most men never learn that. They spend their whole lives trying to look important. I spent mine trying to look like nobody at all. What they don't see is the paperwork. 41 years ago, I poured my first foundation. I was 27. I had cracked hands and $40. I mixed the concrete by hand in a wheelbarrow. I laid every block myself. That first little building took me a whole summer. My knuckles bled into the mortar. Let me tell you about that first winter, because it explains everything. Ruth and I were newly married. We rented one room above a hardware store. The heat barely worked. We slept under 3 coats. I had bid on a small warehouse job and lost money on it. I had promised a crew a paycheck I did not have. I remember sitting on the floor that December. I had $11 in my pocket. Ruth sat down next to me. She did not cry. She did not blame me. She just took my bleeding hands in hers. "Marcus," she said, "we are going to build something. Not this year, but we will." Then she made soup out of almost nothing. That soup tasted like a promise. Our first real break came the next spring. A church needed a fellowship hall. Nobody else would touch it for the price they had. I took it. I worked 18-hour days. I did the work of 3 men because I could not afford 3 men. When it was finished, the old pastor shook my hand. "You build like a man who prays with his hands," he said. That line stayed with me. I have tried to earn it every day since. Word spread the way it does among honest people. 1 good haul became 2. A grocer needed a warehouse. A doctor needed a clinic. I never once cut a corner, not one. When you sign your name to a beam, you are signing a promise to every person who will ever stand under it. Ruth taught me to see the strangers in the blueprints, the future children, the tired workers, the families. You build for them, or you should not build at all. So I built another building, and another. I never bragged. I never bought a fancy car. Ruth and I lived in the same small house for 30 years. We saved every dollar we could. When we finally had money, we did not change how we lived. We changed how many people we could help. That was the whole point. Vance Building Group owns 42 commercial properties now. It employs 300 people. But my name is not on the sign. I keep it that way on purpose. I like walking onto a site and being invisible. I like seeing how people behave when they think no one important is watching. You learn everything about a man that way. Ruth passed 4 years ago. Cancer took her slowly. Near the end, she held my hand and made me promise something. "Don't let the money make you cold," she said, "and don't let anyone treat our family like furniture." I promised her both. I have kept the first promise easily. The second one is why we are here. My daughter Cassidy married a man named Trent the same year Ruth died. Trent is 35. He has a strong handshake and a weak character. He came to work for one of my project firms. He does not know I own it. He thinks I'm just his wife's blue-collar father. A man to be tolerated at holidays. I gave him the job as a favor to Cassidy. I told my managers to treat him like anyone else. No shortcuts, no special seat. He would rise or fall on his own work. That felt fair to me. I wanted to see what he was made of. My father used to say you learn a man's true size when he thinks nobody is measuring. For a while it was fine. He worked hard enough. He smiled at the right people. Then Trent got promoted to assistant site manager. And something in him changed. The power went to his head fast. He started talking down to the older workers. He called them slow. He called them relics. He called them expired. There was a man on his crew named Ernie. Ernie was 62. He had 30 years on the trowel. He was the best finisher I ever hired. Trent made fun of Ernie's shaking hands in front of everyone. He called him Grandpa. Ernie quit 2 weeks later, humiliated. I gave Ernie a job at another site the very next day. I told him he was worth 10 Trents. He cried a little. So did I later, in the truck. That was the first sign. A man who mocks the old for being old will mock everyone eventually. He just needs to feel safe first. Trent was learning to feel safe. And I was learning who he really was. There were other signs I had filed away. A subcontractor named Ollie came to me quietly one spring. He said Trent had stiffed him on a drywall job. He said Trent had promised extra and then refused to pay it. Ollie did not know I was the owner. He just thought I was an old man who might listen. I listened. I paid Ollie myself out of my own pocket. I never told him where the money came from. I just filed the truth away with the rest. There was a vendor, too, who mentioned that Trent always asked for cash discounts off the books. He liked deals that left no trail. He liked to look cheaper on paper than he really was. None of it was proof of a crime yet, but it was a shape. It was the outline of a man who thought rules were for other people. I had seen that shape before, decades ago, in men who eventually cost me dearly. I promised myself I would not be slow this time. My old friend Kurt noticed it too. Kurt has run my supply yard for 30 years. He is blunt as a hammer. Marcus, he told me over coffee, that boy Cassidy married has a hungry look. Not hungry for work, hungry for shortcuts. Watch your beams. Kurt was right. Kurt is usually right. He also cheats at cards, but that is a different story. He started talking down to me too. At family dinners, he would cut me off. You wouldn't understand the new methods, Marcus, he'd say. He said it in front of Cassidy. He said it in front of my grandkids. He would talk about me in the third person while I sat right there. He probably doesn't even know what a load calculation is. I just nodded and ate my food. Do you know that feeling? Being spoken about like you are not in the room. Like your years mean nothing. Like the fact that you built the table everyone is eating at is a joke. So many of us have raised children who think our whole life was just practice for theirs. I felt that at my own daughter's table, and I said nothing. One Christmas, my grandson made me a card. He drew me on a job site with a little hard hat. I loved it. I put it in my shirt pocket. Trent saw it and laughed. Careful, buddy, don't give Grandpa ideas. He might think he's in charge. Everyone chuckled. I kept the card. I still have it. Small cruelties add up. I was counting them all. I noticed the little things after that. He stopped saying hello on the site. He would walk right past me. He told the young guys I was just the old man who sweeps up. One morning he pointed at me across the lot and laughed. Watch out, he might fall and sue us. The young guys laughed with him. They did not know any better. Something in my stomach shifted. It was not anger. It was a cold, quiet clarity. I have felt it before. It is the feeling I get right before I make a decision I do not take back. My father called it the settling. When the mud settles, you finally see the bottom of the pond. Then came the phone call. The foreman. The ban. Trent had told the whole crew I was a safety hazard. He said I was too old to be on a modern site. He wanted me gone before the regional inspection next week. He thought it would make him look sharp and decisive. He thought it would impress the regional director. He had no idea that the modern site sat on land I bought in 1998. He had no idea the company that signed his paycheck answered to me. He was trying to fire the ground he was standing on. He was sawing the branch he was sitting on and calling it leadership. I did not shout. I did not call Cassidy to complain. I sat down at my kitchen table. I made myself a fresh cup of coffee. I looked out at the tomato plants Ruth used to tend, and I started making calls of my own. The first call was to Dale, my foreman, the man who warned me. Dale has worked with me for 22 years. He knows who I really am. Dale, I said, I need you to do exactly nothing. Follow Trent's order. Ban me. Act like it's normal. Dale went quiet. Sir, are you sure? He's been strutting around like he owns the place. I told him I was very sure. Give a proud man enough rope, I said, and he'll build his own scaffold. Dale laughed his big low laugh. Ruth used to say that, he said. She did, I told him. She said it about a supplier who tried to cheat us in 1991. That man is out of business now. We were both quiet for a second. Then Dale said, What do you need from me? I told him. Records, quiet eyes, patience. The second call was to Margaret, my lawyer of 30 years. I asked her to pull every document tied to Trent's role, his contracts, his approvals, his signatures, every purchase order with his name on it. Something on your mind, Marcus? She asked. Just doing a little inspection of my own, I said. Margaret has known me long enough to hear the weather in my voice. I'll clear my afternoon, she said. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it. But it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you genuinely. Now let me tell you what I found, because it turned out to be so much worse than hurt pride. While Dale gathered records on the site, Margaret built the case on paper. She is meticulous. She has protected my name for 30 years without ever once raising her voice. If we do this, she told me, we do it clean. No leaks. No temper. We let the documents speak. I agreed. A quiet man with clean documents beats a loud man with excuses every single time. That is not just a saying. I have watched it decide fortunes. Margaret called me back 2 days later. Her voice was tight. Marcus, you need to see this in person. Come to the office. Don't bring anyone. I drove there that afternoon. She had a folder waiting on her desk. It was thicker than I expected. My stomach told me this was worse than ego. This was the heavy, wrong kind of quiet. Trent had been cutting corners, real ones, dangerous ones. On the Riverside site, he had approved cheaper steel than the plans required. He signed off on it himself. He pocketed the difference in his bonus numbers. He made himself look efficient by making the building weaker. He turned a school district's future gym into a gamble. That was why he wanted me banned. It was never about my age. He was afraid of my eyes. I have poured concrete for 40 years. I can spot bad steel from across a lot. He knew that if I walked that site, I would see exactly what he had done. I would read the building like a letter, and it would tell on him. I felt something go very cold and very still inside me. This was not a snub anymore. This was not hurt feelings at a dinner table. He had put families at risk. People would work in that building. Children would play in it. He had gambled their safety for a bigger bonus and a better title. He had crossed a line you do not uncross. I called Dale again. The Riverside Steel, I said. Pull the delivery records. Quietly, he did. The records confirmed everything. The good steel had been ordered on paper. The cheap steel had shown up on the truck. The paperwork and the reality did not match, and Trent's signature sat on both. He had signed the lie twice. I spent the next week doing what I do best. I stayed quiet. I gathered. I documented. I got an independent engineer to inspect the site after hours. His name was Paul. He crawled every beam with a flashlight. When he came down, his face was gray. "Marcus," he said, "this steel is undersized. If this building fills with people and the load hits wrong, someone dies." He put it in writing. I now had a folder of my own. It was airtight. That night, Dale and I sat in my old truck across from the Riverside site. We watched the dark building for a long while. Neither of us spoke much. Two old men with coffee in a parking lot. "You remember the Millbrook job?" Dale finally said.
I did.
In 1996, a supplier sent us weak concrete. I caught it before we poured. "You saved 12 lives that day and nobody ever knew," Dale said. "Nobody needs to know," I told him. "That's not why we do it." Dale nodded slowly. "That boy will never understand that," he said. "No," I agreed. "He thinks the point is the applause." I asked Dale to do one more thing. I asked him to quietly move the occupancy date back a week, on a small excuse, so no worker would set foot inside before the inspection. He did it that same night. If the building was going to fail, it would fail empty. I was not going to gamble even one day. Ruth's voice was in my ear the whole time. "Don't let anyone treat our family like furniture, and don't let a proud fool bury people to feel tall." Here is the thing about calm. People mistake it for weakness. Trent thought my silence at those dinners meant I had nothing to say. He was wrong. My silence meant I was listening. My silence meant I was counting. Revenge is a dish best served cold. But I prefer mine served with a certified engineer's report. I want to be honest with you about the hard part. There was a night that week I almost stopped. Cassidy called me, happy. She said Trent had gotten them a bigger apartment. She sounded proud of him. I sat in the dark, with the phone in my hand. I thought about her heartbreak coming. I thought about my grandkids. I almost buried the whole folder to protect her joy. Then I looked at my grandson's Christmas card on the fridge. The little hard hat, the crooked smile he drew on me, and I thought about the children who would fill that gym. Somebody's grandkids. I could not trade their safety for my daughter's comfort. Ruth would not have let me. Love that hides the truth is not love. It is just fear wearing a nicer coat. So I decided to handle it the right way. Not a screaming match, not a scene at Cassidy's house. I would do it where it mattered. At the regional safety inspection. The one Trent thought would be his big moment. I made one phone call to the inspection board. I asked to attend as a concerned property owner. They said yes. They had no idea who was coming. The morning of the inspection came. The Riverside site was full of people. The regional director was there. 2 state safety officials were there. Trent stood at the front in a crisp white hard hat. He had bought a new one for the occasion. He looked like he owned the world. Cassidy had come to watch her husband shine. My grandkids were there too, in little clip-on ties. Trent saw me walk through the gate. His face twisted. He marched over fast. "You can't be here," he hissed. "I banned you. You're a liability, old man. Go home before you embarrass yourself in front of my bosses." He said it loud enough for people to hear. A few of the young guys snickered. Cassidy looked away, embarrassed for me. That hurt more than anything he said. I looked at him calmly. I did not raise my voice. "I go where I like on this land, Trent," I said. He laughed. "This isn't your land. You don't own anything. You're my wife's broke father. You sweep floors." That is when Dale stepped forward. Dale took off his hard hat. He held it against his chest. He said one word. Sir, he was not talking to Trent. He was talking to me. The whole crew turned. Every man who had ever worked a Vance site turned to look at me. Some of them slowly took off their hats, too. It rippled across the lot like wine through wheat. Trent watched it happen and did not understand it yet. The regional director walked over. He had known me for 20 years. "Mr. Vance," he said, and he shook my hand warmly with both of his. "We didn't expect the owner today. This is an honor, sir. The whole company knows what you built." The word owner landed in the crowd like a dropped I-beam. Everything went silent. Trent's face drained of all its color. "Owner?" Cassidy whispered. She looked at me. She looked at Trent. She looked back at me. "Dad?" I turned to my daughter. "I never wanted you to see me any way but as your dad," I said gently. "But yes, sweetheart, Vance Building Group. I built it. All 42 buildings. Every one." Cassidy's hand went to her mouth. Then I turned back to Trent. His mouth was opening and closing. No sound came out. I opened my folder. I laid it on the inspection table, the steel records, the delivery logs, Paul's engineering report, the signatures, Trent's signatures, twice over. The regional director's smile faded as he read. The 2 state officials leaned in. The building behind us suddenly felt very tall and very heavy. "Trent approved substandard steel on this structure," I said. My voice stayed level. "He did it to inflate his bonus. He tried to ban me from the site so I wouldn't catch it. I caught it anyway." I looked at the officials. "This building is not safe for occupancy. I want it stopped today. Before one single person walks in." Trent tried to talk his way out. It was painful to watch. "There's an explanation," he said. "The supplier substituted it. I didn't know. But his signature was on the substitution order. His name was on the bonus form that rewarded the savings." Paul the engineer spoke up quietly. "Sir, you initialed the mill certs. Those numbers don't match the beams in the ground. You had to read them to sign them." Trent had no answer. The lie had run out of road. He turned to Cassidy for help. That was his mistake. "Cass, tell them. Tell them who I am." Cassidy looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at me, then back at him. "I'm telling them exactly who you are," she said quietly. "You're a man who mocked my father for years while he quietly paid your bills. You're a man who would risk children to look good." She took off her wedding ring. She set it on the inspection table next to the folder. The whole crew watched her do it. The site went into motion around us. Officials made calls. Radios crackled. The occupancy was frozen on the spot. An investigation opened before lunch. Trent just stood there. The crisp white hard hat suddenly looked like a child's costume. The man who called everyone a relic had nothing left to say. He looked, for the first time, exactly his age. Small, the young guys who had laughed at me that morning would not meet his eyes now. They had learned something about who to respect. That lesson was worth more than any building. Now here is where I want you to understand something about me. I match the punishment to the crime. A snub gets forgiveness. Greed gets exposure. But this was different. He had endangered lives. Children's lives. So I did not stop at firing him. I turned the file over to the authorities. Fraud, reckless endangerment, falsifying safety documents. Let the law do its work. Trent was arrested 3 weeks later. He was charged with fraud and with endangering the public. He lost the job. He lost his standing. He lost the respect of every man on that crew. He is facing real consequences now, in a real courtroom where the paperwork does the talking. I did not smile when they let him out. There was no joy in it. But there was justice. And on a crime against families, justice is not optional. Mercy there would have been an insult to every child who would have sat under that roof. Cassidy came to my house that same week. She sat at my kitchen table where all of this had started. Ruth's tomato plants were budding outside the window. Cassidy was crying. "Dad, I am so sorry," she said. "I let him talk about you like that. For years. I should have stopped it the first time. I should have seen him. I put my hand over hers, the way Ruth once put her hands over mine. You are not responsible for his choices," I told her. "You are responsible for what you do now." She nodded. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, the way she did when she was little. She asked me why I never told her about the company, why I let everyone think I was just a laborer with a bungee-cord truck. I told her the truth. Because I wanted to know who loved me before they knew, I said. Money changes how people look at a man. It puts a price tag on his hugs. I wanted to see the real faces first. Yours was always real, Cassidy. Even as a little girl, you loved the man, not the wallet. That is why I was never worried about you. Only for you. She stayed for dinner. She stayed the next night, too. My grandkids came over and helped me fix the bungee cord on the truck tailgate. My grandson asked if he could keep his Christmas card on the fridge forever. I told him it was staying there for the rest of my life. We laughed. The house felt warm again. The kind of warm that money cannot buy and greed cannot steal. A few days later, I drove out to see Ruth. She rests on a hill outside town, under a maple she would have loved. I brought her a cup of coffee, the way I always do. I set it on the grass. It's handled, I told her. The family's safe. Cassidy's home. The wind moved the leaves. I like to think that was her answer. I told her about Ernie coming back. I told her about the little clip-on ties the grandkids wore. I sat there until the coffee went cold. Then I drank it because Ruth hated waste. Trent wrote me a letter from the county jail. It was 3 pages long. The first 2 pages blamed everyone but himself, the supplier, the market, me. The 3rd page finally asked for help. He wanted me to make it go away. He said we were family. I read it twice. Then I wrote him back 1 sentence. You were family the day you married my daughter, and you spent every day after that proving you didn't want to be. I never heard from him again. Some doors close themselves. You just stop holding them open. People ask me if I feel guilty. For letting him build the scaffold. For not warning him off the cliff. I do not. I gave that man years of chances. A job he did not earn. A seat at my table. Patience I did not owe him. He mistook my kindness for blindness. That was his choice, not my trap. I did not push him. I simply stopped catching him. I want to tell you what happened to Cassidy, because it matters. She did not fall apart. She got stronger. She filed for divorce with her chin up. She got a job managing the office at one of my firms. She did not know it was mine at first. She earned the role on her own. When she found out later, she laughed and cried at the same time. I really am my father's daughter, she said. She is. She is better than me. She is what Ruth and I built that money could never buy. The Riverside building was torn down to the frame. We rebuilt it right. Good steel. Honest work. Ernie, the finisher Trent humiliated, came back to lead the concrete crew. He ran his shaking hands over the fresh floor and smiled like a young man. The gym stands today, strong and safe, exactly the way a building should. Children play in it now. I drive past sometimes in my old truck. I feel something better than revenge. I feel peace. I still wear the brown Carhartt jacket. The tailgate still has its bungee cord. Nobody at the diner knows I own 42 buildings. The young guys on my site still think I'm the old man who sweeps up. When a new kid gets cocky, Dale just smiles and says, "Careful, son, that old man built the ground you're standing on." And that is exactly how I like it. Some men build empires so the world will look at them. I built mine so I would never have to look away from an honest day's work. There is a difference. My father taught me that difference with his hands. Ruth kept it alive with hers. I have spent my whole life keeping their lessons standing, one honest beam at a time. Trent thought a hard hat made him powerful. He learned that power is not in the title you wear, it is in the work you protect, and the people you refuse to gamble with. He tried to ban an old man from a job site. He forgot that the old man had been building it for 40 years before he ever showed up. He forgot that the quiet ones are quiet because they are listening. I think about Ruth every day. I think about that cold December floor. $11 and a bowl of soup and a promise. We kept the promise. We built something real. And when a man came along who tried to tear a piece of it down for his own vanity, the thing we built held. Good foundations do that. They hold. That is the whole secret. Pour it honest, and it will carry you long after your hands are gone. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being part of this family. Take care of the ones who built the ground you stand on. Look them in the eye. Say their name with respect. One day you may find out that the tired old hands you overlooked were holding you up the entire time.